Our journey today takes us to the head office strategic partnerships and sales at Food Forest Abundance, a company on a mission to build a localized, decentralized, poison-free food and plant medicine supply across the earth, unlocking abundance for all. It talks about his career and life, but I'll let him talk about it because it's his journey, not mine. And we join him in the car today as he's been busy doing tie work. We welcome Matthew Britt to the journey.
Hey, so great to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the show today. I look forward to a great conversation.
You're welcome. Now, obviously, you've wrote a bit about you in your career. Let's talk about the earliest memories that you remember possible, because obviously, the earliest memory is that you're born, and that's a long-standing joke, you're born. But
Yeah.
what was your earliest memories as a child growing up?
I guess one would be driving with my grandfather and pretending that the car was a spaceship. We used to kind of play like that fairly often. This is my mother's dad, and this was in Niagara Falls, Ontario, Canada. And we would pretend that the vehicle that he had was a rocket ship, and I can remember doing that quite regularly with him.
Yeah. And the fun thing is, and this is me comparing to nowadays society, you get trucks that are big like spaceships. You got electric vehicles like a Tesla that is.
Yeah,
So the future's there. So you was thinking very advanced of whatever
yeah,
vehicle it was like.
yeah. Feel like it was an old, like a Datsun is kind of what comes to my mind. I could be way off, but that's what just hit me there when I thought about what kind of car it was.
And cars back then, they're not as advanced as they are nowadays. Everything was manual
No,
needles on a dashboard. It's no longer.
yeah,
Nowadays, it's digital. You got a computer, you got a screen in front of you. More fun times because you had the imagination at the time, and
yeah,
that's what that fun is.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so it goes into saying, and I will touch upon what you have written. It says, in your early days, you wanted to be a professional athlete. The
Yes,
dream of
sir.
get the dream of going pro end of the year is team won the Canadian National Hockey Championship. And this is the saddest part of it. It says you separated both of your shoulders three times that season.
Yeah, I separated both my shoulders a total of three times. So I did one of them twice and the other once. But the team played roughly 120 games, and I got to play about 35 of those. So those shoulder injuries were huge setbacks, and really, once you have those type of injuries, they just commonly reoccur, and it uh, ended the dream of going pro.
Yeah, and obviously that was one of your biggest dreams is obviously wanting to go pro, but then it got set back.
Yep.
So what was the change? Obviously you couldn't pursue what you wanted, so you changed to do what you are doing now, I assume, or was there something before that?
No, there were many other things prior to what I'm doing now, and I kind of lost my way for a little while. Once I got back on track, I ended up moving myself to Ottawa, Ontario from Thunder Bay, Ontario, where my family had moved. And I spent my teenage years. I moved there when I just turned 12, so I'd spent my teenage years into my early 20s, and then moved to Ottawa, Ontario, with the intention of going to school, studying tourism and travel. And I chose that because not because I liked school, but because I knew I would love to travel. And if you get a job in the tourism and travel industry, there's a lot of perks that come along with that. So the interesting thing is, though, while I was there going to school, I quickly got a job at the college gym. And that was a real easy transition for me since I had already been working out and lifting weights. I got my first set of weights when I was 8 years old, and had been heavily exercising. I wanted to be a pro athlete, so it's what you did. And when I got into school and got the job at the college gym, I very quickly realized I was not really interested in the school so much and loved working in the gym. It was great to be able to work in shorts and a t-shirt and be in an environment where people are really trying to better themselves.
Yeah.
So I made a complete pivot. I dropped out of school, went full time working in the fitness world, and did that for about a decade. Had a lot of fun there, and really got myself into a spot where I helped a lot of people heal and get off lots of pharmaceutical drugs. It was very successful in helping people heal through movement, good sleep, proper mindset, breath work, just all of those things. It's miraculous what the human body will do when given the right environment to succeed.
Yeah. And you talk about pharmaceutical drugs, and I know for a fact, for so long, I was so not saying dependent, but it was so used to saying, okay, you're taking this antidepressant, you're taking that medication. For the last 4 to 6 years, I think it's 6 years possibly, I've always wanted to avoid taking pharmaceutical drugs, and I'm not trying to promote them in any way, so I'm not going to specify any certain one, but I wanted to detract away from it because I felt like I wasn't benefiting from those said drugs.
Yeah, and you don't have to say a whole lot about it. I can definitely speak my mind on that thing. The business is sickness. Unfortunately, our healthcare world, especially in the West, has converted to be more of a sickness business. And unfortunately, a sickness business isn't driven by helping you actually heal and be a healthy individual again. It's driven by helping you stay sick. And unfortunately, because it's driven that way. And this doesn't mean the doctors are bad and the people creating the drugs are bad. I want to preface all that. These people are doing this with the right intention, but the industry itself is fundamentally broken because money is made when people are sick.
Mm,
And because of that, it's left us in a very precarious situation where, we spend, especially in the United States, it's got the biggest healthcare budgets in the world, yet some of the sickest population in the world who are on multiple drugs. I think the average is somewhere around 5 to 7. That's a lot. And these drugs are masking symptoms, not actually helping you heal. But once you're on one of these chemical compounds long enough, it begins to trigger the need for something else, which usually ends up being another pharmaceutical drug.
yeah,
So my belief is, unfortunately, that business has been corrupted in a way that's really preventing us from truly experiencing what true health and vitality really is like. And we've been fooled to believe that in order to be healthy, we need to take some chemical compounds that are patented by a company who makes money when you consume that product and stay sick.
yeah. And I know from my time when I was in the UK, they pile you up so much. And I know the National Health Service, if you're a NHS patient, you don't have to worry about cost. But the fact is, they piled you up so much, and then they came to a point of, we can't do that for you. And then you give you another alternative, and then your body will get used to that. It's like, that's not the same effect as if I was going to have that. It's like I used to use a certain kind of, you know, it's like a surgical stocking because I suffer from eczema. Now, they piled me up with steroid creams all my life, so my skin looks older than I am, but I know I get through it now and I'm not as bad as it was because I'm avoiding all the stressors. But back then, they gave me those stockings. They said, as a rule, we don't give you these stockings. I said, why is that? Then they told me bluntly, they said it costs over 100 UK pounds just for a box of these stockings. I was getting 3, 4 boxes of these stockings every time I had a prescription. Now, don't get me wrong, they did do the job. It wasn't steroid socks, it was like a zinc oxide sock, and it just pigmented into my skin, left my skin moisturized. I was good with that. But the thing was, when I was used to that and I wanted to carry on using it, they said we can't always do it because of cost. So I had to
Mm,
find alternative methods, and I've been doing research online in researching natural, tablets now, and I found a happy medium. And like I said, my eczema is not as bad as it is. It comes up when it's certain temperatures, it comes out when it's certain elements, but it doesn't define me. But I
yeah,
feel
yeah,
better because I'm on a more natural approach.
yeah. The body will heal itself when it's provided with the right environment, nutrients, minerals, etc., and conditions. And unfortunately, again, we see it happen on our skin, right? We get a cut, we see it heal, yet for some reason, we lose the belief that it can happen in other areas too. And as long as we're continually misled, people will continue to buy into it until they get the veil pulled off someday by something happening to them that makes them really wake up to this. And then they start taking it into their own hands. I hope that we get to that place where there's a happy balance between what big pharma, I like to call them big harma, actually, what big harma does and the natural healing side. We can come to a happy medium because I'm all for, emergency surgery. If I get in a car accident, I need to be, air vac'd into a hospital and I need all these things, these surgeries and drugs and stuff to make it through that. Completely in agreement. But for most people, most of the time, there are ways that our body could heal most ailments. We just are not really shown what's possible, and you're left to have to go search for it on your own time, which is often challenging for people.
Yeah, and I found out, like I said, when I came to America, those socks I thought would be commonplace because obviously I was so used to it in England.
Yeah.
Try telling the physician when I saw a doctor, it's like, what's that? And I had to even show a picture. No, we don't do those.
Uh,
So that was like a bummer for me. It's like, okay. But like I
yeah.
said, I found alternatives now. I'm on I take a tablet that's, natural. It's I forgot the exact word, but it's flavored in such a way, but it's all natural and it helps promote without me having the need to have creams. I have moisturizers if I need it, but the tablet, which I get independently, is better for me.
Yes. Yeah. And it is eczema an autoimmune disease?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe so. I
Yeah.
know
I
some
think so.
people often ask me back in the day, is it contagious? Is it hereditary? It's like, no, it's not contagious. It's not
No.
hereditary. It's just a factor that happens within. And I think it's when I'm trying to remember how I remember it. They said it's where the skin can't produce enough stuff in your body to protect it. So it will flare up to try and protect it.
Yes.
Something like that.
Okay.
So that's why it gets red. That's why you get the urge to itch because it's trying to heal. But and that's when you itch, it will cause
Yeah.
slightly complicated eczema.
Yes. Yes.
And I thought I had I had sepsis a few years ago. Started seeing it on my back, and I was like, why is it red? My feet I knew was already bad, and I went to the hospital. They said, we want you straight away. You got a really bad case of infection, sepsis. And I was like, okay. And I was in hospital for a whole week. And I was given the strong medication then, but at the same time, it could have been prevented.
Yeah.
So you go on to saying about you also worked about a network marketing business in your spare time. So you doing helping people, but you're also doing what you like doing is network marketing, and network marketing is a good way of promoting a lot of ways, to a lot of people, I believe.
Yeah, so I loved the fitness world and still have a big passion for human movement and helping the body heal through movement and great nutrition and whatnot. But the whole time I was doing personal training, it was always very dependent on me. So if I could not make it to see a client, if I hurt myself, I didn't get paid. And when I got exposed to the industry of direct sales and network marketing, those things that, your parents always tell you that's a pyramid, or your friends tell you that's a pyramid, or, those things are illegal, whatever. What I found when I actually investigated it was that, yes, there are illegal businesses that operate as pyramids and people get in trouble for those. There are also legal business models that utilize a multi-level marketing compensation plan that there are people that make millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars through it.
Mm.
And what I thought is, hey, if there are lots of people that do this, obviously it's not everybody, but not everybody is a success at anything. And what I realized, if others can do it, I just need to learn what they know and they do. And in time, if I do that, I can expect to have similar results in some capacity. Now, I failed for 7 years. I attended the events, I talked to the people, I talked to my friends and family members, and I promoted and promoted. I read the books, I put in the personal development work. And after 7 years of failure, mediocre success, all of a sudden I had the right opportunity, the right people, the right messaging, and I was ready for it. And at that time, I was still doing the personal training. I had been actually running a club myself. I had a team of 21 trainers that worked for me, and I decided to walk away from that and dove in full time into the network marketing industry, and built a business there inside 2.5 years that at its very peak was doing 13 million a month in sales. And I didn't make that much money, but what ended up happening in that situation is I made well over $1 million. And the the great thing that I learned from that was the ability to get more done in a 24-hour period of time, because we all have that same 24 hours. And I always wondered, how do some people make potentially millions a day and others make $50 in a day?
Yeah.
Like, what's the difference? And the answer is, how do you get more done in that same 24-hour period of time? And it's through creating leverage. And there's really four ways to have leverage: money at work, people at work, or machines at work. And I guess it's actually only three, not four. So, you know, if you can find ways to have money at work or machines at work, that's great. That creates serious leverage for you. The other way is by having people at work. And at that peak of that business, I had well over 100,000 people in my team that were all putting in a little bit of work every day. And I earned a small percentage based on their production. And once I really got that concept, I was like, that is a place I'm going to spend the rest of my life working on. Like, how can I get more done in my same 24-hour period so that I can create leverage for myself and go and make a big difference and add a lot of value to the marketplace?
Yeah, and obviously the marketplace does vary from person to person, but it still does boil down to the 24-hour period. Everyone's still got
Yes,
that same time. Even if you change time zones, you've still got the same time period. You still, wherever you are in the world, it's still the same time period.
correct.
It's just upside down if you go to Australia.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, um, you've also been a CEO of a solar company and head of business development of the largest decentralized solar platform in the world, building an installer network over 300 installers over 23 US states in a year and a
Yeah.
half. So these keynotes that I'm reading, you've done a lot for what you wanted to do.
Yeah. So when I was about 24, I set myself a high level overarching mission for my life. And that was improving life, health, and prosperity. So as I got doing things and into my career, so to speak, I always kept that as the theme. Right? If anything that I did had to have a positive impact on life, health, and prosperity. So through the network marketing times, having a lot of success there, I decided to then I started a positive apparel brand called Let's Hug It Out. It was a t-shirt company. We had a simple mission: spread hugs, positive vibes, and happiness simply by wearing a shirt. Sold shirts all over the world. I learned through that I did not want to be a t-shirt company owner. There was a lot of work inside of that. I was, getting the shirts printed. I was taking in all the orders. I was packing them. I was sending them out. I was the guy doing the promotions, running the social media, just all the things. So I had no leverage in that business, and we never grew big enough for me to get into a position where I could build leverage. Uh, but it taught me a lot about what I didn't want to do. From there, I ended up starting a young entrepreneurial development company called Young Pros. I ended up going to colleges and universities throughout the greater Ottawa area. And this would be after school typically. And I'd go in and start teaching kids about entrepreneurship, helping
Mm.
them set up businesses and testing them in different ways to be able to uh, run a small business challenge as an example. In the next 60 days or 90 days, here's kind of the goal. And of that, see how many people could go and do it, and had some sort of rewards at the end of it all.
Yeah.
And
So
that gives the real world experience.
yeah, it does.
Um, so I, did that for a while, had a lot of fun and success there. But my partner that I was doing it with, who was a college kid at the time, he ended up graduating and going on a trip. I think he spent a year away, so that kind of ended up shutting down the Young Pros business. Then it was after that I moved into the solar space, and I brought a solar company to Canada, and we were more of a sales engine for this solar business. And quickly after we got started, they decided to pivot and focus all their attention on the United States. So it left us in a spot where who was going to service the solar sales that were happening. And instead of, you know, quitting it, I decided, hey, let's start the solar business that handles all of the solar sales. So we did that. I became a CEO, ran that company for about 3.5 years. That taught me a lot about business too. It also taught me that I really needed to have a great team of people around me, because as a CEO, there was stuff that I was fantastic at and stuff that I was not great at.
Mm.
And I think that's really a very important lesson for anybody who's going to run any business or really try to do anything in their life, is just how important a team is. You can't do everything on your own. You have certain strengths and you have weaknesses. And instead of trying to focus on making those weaknesses better, what I've learned from guys like John Maxwell and Tony Robbins is focus on your strengths and bring in great people who have strengths in areas of your weakness. And when you build the right team and you get the right people into the mission and the why, and you get them in the right seats on the proverbial bus, you can then produce incredible results. So
So,
through that journey of being a CEO, we had good success overall. And then the 2020 stuff happened, and that forced us to take a look in the mirror and say, are we gonna, try to push through as the government shuts down the border and it shuts down business and all that stuff? Or are we going to take our lessons and lick our wounds and shut down the business and pivot? And that's what we ended up choosing. And it was at that time that I started working with that solar business in the United States, where I became their head of business development. They're the largest decentralized solar platform in the world. They're called Power, Powur, essentially like an Uber of solar. I did their business development, like I said, built an install network of over 300 installers across 23 US states. And while I was doing that, is where I came across what I'm doing now with Food Forest Abundance. And my original intention when discovering Food Forest Abundance was to actually unify Food Forest Abundance with power, because everybody who's installing a solar array on their house, whether they realize it or not, they're looking for other ways to be more self sufficient. And everybody installing a permaculture food forest on their property to produce food at home, well, they're looking for other ways to be more self sufficient too. So it just seemed like a good opportunity for some business collaboration. But unfortunately, the CEO of the solar business wasn't ready for it. And as I got to learn more about what Food Forest Abundance was up to, I realized there was a much greater opportunity for global impact, and decided to make, again, a pivot. I knew nothing about permaculture, and I had only heard the word in the past. But as I got to understand it more, it just really seemed like an incredibly valuable piece, and something that I could do to leave the world a better place. And, made a pivot over here and been here ever since.
yeah, and obviously we now go into the future. And how do you see things progressing for you as a person? Do you feel like it's going to progress and you're going to pivot and change direction again, or are you happy where you are?
Yeah, right now I would do this for no money. I do it to make it a living at the moment. I'm part of the ownership team, and we are building this right now to earn income ourselves. But I'm also working on some other things that once I get those really going, and I don't need to be making money from this, I would I would do this without having to make money because I believe what we're doing here is vital to taking back our power because there's a man named Henry Kissinger who some of your audience may know, and this man has met with every president and many world leaders, and he's one of the things he's famous for saying: if you want to control the people, control the money supply and the food supply. And this isn't the ramblings of some babbling idiot. He knew what he was talking about. Controlling the food supply controls the population.
Yeah.
And we've given up our power of food production to big multinational corporations. We've put so much of it in the hands of the governments and the regulators and all of those things. And there's a simple solution to all that. When they're spraying poisons on our food, right? Glyphosate, a chemical used in war. Um, the solution is take the power back. Everybody used to grow food, but we grew it in a way where we fought nature, which made it hard and time consuming and resource intensive. What we do is flip it all on its head. We work with the brilliance of nature. Nature is abundant naturally. And the way we grow food today, because we fight nature, it makes it so time, energy, money, resource intensive. And that's why there's so many chemicals involved in the food production, is because we're trying to control nature, trying to fight nature. And nature is relentless, it will never lose. So we have to flip it all, work with nature, let nature do what it does best. And that's where the world of permaculture comes into place. Permanent cultures, permanent agriculture. It's utilizing the hundreds of thousands of edible, perennial, and medicinal plants and building systems that are completely sustainable, completely regenerative, that will produce food for you for decades, as well as medicines, as well as fibers and materials and all kinds of things. And we believe, and this is a quote from the guy who's known as basically as the father of permaculture. His name is Bill Mollison. He's got a quote: although the problems of the world seem increasingly complex, the solutions remain embarrassingly simple. And we believe this is one of those embarrassingly simple solutions. If we can get as many people as possible converting some of their currently ornamental landscaping, their liability landscape, into a value producing, yield producing, asset driven landscape, it changes everything. So, our mission is to build a localized, decentralized, poison free food and plant medicine supply. Localized, get as many people in a community as possible growing some food. Decentralized, having all these different locations doing it, whether that's a home, a school, a church, an orphanage, a prison, a hotel, a resort, a corporate campus, wherever. Get growing some food, build a system that supplies everybody. Not saying the grocery store is going to go away and the traditional farmer is going to go away, but this will ease the burden on the current food system, which is very fragile right now, and put more power back into the hands of the population because we're also no longer using the poisons, the chemicals. We're going to see, in our belief, massive health improvements too. The cancers, the heart diseases, the diabetes, the autoimmune conditions, etc. Because now people are getting better food, better nutrients, the body will heal. We're not taking in the poisons, which, in my belief, is playing a huge role in helping making us sick.
Yeah, and I really truly hope that is going to be the case because we need something to break that main chain between. So to conclude, and I think we touched upon it when you was giving a talk there, what would you say to help others feel inspired by your journey?
A few things.
Yeah.
Set big goals, dream again. A lot of people lose their ability. Society kind of takes it away from you. But think about it. What if you had all the time and money and the freedom to do whatever you wanted? What would you do? And oftentimes people will say, I'd sit back on a beach and just enjoy my life. Well, I'm telling you, the beach gets boring after a few years doing nothing. You have things inside of you that actually really would drive you to be excited. And if you don't have those, it's probably because you've lost those dreams from when you were young. So I'd say start dreaming again, set some big goals, reframe. What would you do if you had the time freedom and the money freedom? That usually will lead you to finding a passion, something that you could really pour your life into to make a difference in the marketplace. 2 would be, don't give up. You could change your course, but you only really fail when you quit. So once you establish those big goals and dreams, decide that you're going to spend the rest of your life working to attain them. And every time you attain a new one, you set new goals. But work to attain those things and don't quit. Again, you can change course, but never fully give up. Just stay the course, because the belief from a lot of people is the journey to success is a straight line, but it is not that. It is a squiggly up and down, back and forth mess, but it's all part of the journey. Life happens for us. It doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. And it's all testing you to see, are you going to learn the lessons? Are you going to be willing to work through the challenges and the negativity and the hardships in pursuit of making your positive impact? Because when you prove that you want it bad enough, you will get it.
Yeah. And obviously people will be wanting to follow you on social media or get in contact or
Yeah.
even just finding out how can they do all this?
Well, they can find me on Facebook. It's Matthew Britt, facebook.com/Matthew Britt. They can find me on Instagram. It's at Matthew Britt's Picks, at Matthew Britt's Picks. They could also find us through our website, foodforestabundance.com, foodforestabundance.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, again, under Matthew Britt. So any of those places, and I'd be happy to connect.
Well, Matthew, thank you for sharing your journey with us. Even if we are interviewing you in the car, it's fun because it makes it unique. It makes it more personal that we are not in an environment. I am in an environment where the green screen's behind me, where you see the colors, but you are naturally being you.
Yeah. Had a unfortunate, not an accident from us, but we had 2 lug nuts get ripped off our car yesterday while we were driving. Almost lost the tire on the front driver's side.
Ouch.
So had to get the car in today to get repaired.
Ouch. But thank you for being part of the journey today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, David. It was great to talk with you, and I hope your audience got some value from the conversation.
The Journey podcast explores stories of personal growth, challenges, and life-changing moments. Each episode dives into unique experiences, offering insights and inspiration for listeners navigating their own paths. I believe everyone has a story worth sharing. If you'd like to share your journey with David and others, email your story to wisewords1983@reborn.com, and it may be featured in a future episode.